Photoshop contains filters of all kinds grouped into 13 submenu filter catalogs under the Filter menu. Let's learn the basics first by applying one of the easy-to-understand filters. We will now apply filters to our images. There is a filter called Sharpen. Open Filter and go to Sharpen. Under its submenu, there are 4 options. Choose Sharpen first and apply to your selected image. Does it help? When you zoom in on it, can you see the effect it has? It cannot really bring back an image that is off focus or contrast, but it helps it look better. Try the Sharpen More filter also. Do not apply one of the Sharpen filters and enlarge the image too much for a final use. The artifact structure of the image might be too strong and it makes it useless. Sharpen Edges is a truly useful filter. It doesn't affect the whole image, so you don't get as much of a sense of that harsh blocky effect as with Sharpen More. The Sharpen Edge enhances the contrast in only parts of the image. It sharpens, contours, and gives this image a very good effect. And finally, I apply the Unsharp mask. Most filters offer you a dialog box that includes a preview window. Set the amount for the level of sharpening. Keep the radius at a low level, 1.5 or 2.0. The threshold setting option coordinates the pixel order. You can create a very wild image by applying a high-leveled setting, but it is usually not very useful. You have to apply and check the results on your image. After sharpening an image, I will introduce you to a filter group that creates soft effects, the Blur Filter group. Filters in this group can be used on both a selection or complete image. Under the Blur submenu, you find Blur, Blur More, Gaussian Blur, Motion Blur, Radial Blur, and Smart Blur. To figure out how a filter works for your image, you have to apply it and then check its effect. That is very simple to understand and is what all artists do. I choose this close-up of tomatoes and check on the blur filters. I start with Blur and Blur More. As you can see, the changes are minor. Blurring doesn't make much difference, but it can smooth out wrinkles in a face or soften a hard edge. And now to Blur More. By applying the Blur More filter, you can see the effect of blur better. Gaussian Blur. You can apply the blur filter several times in order to get the effect you want, or move on to a Gaussian Blur. The Gaussian Blur dialog box lets you determine exactly how much blur to apply by setting a radius value from 0.1 to 255. You can also use it to anti-alias the edges of an object and to blur shadow areas when you want to create a drop shadow effect. Even at fairly small settings, it has quite a dramatic effect. The motion blur is a camera shaking effect. You can apply how many blurs you want by setting a distance value, and with the angle setting option you can give it a direction. Watch the preview window. Like we said before, you have to try to find the setting you want or can use. It is a lot of fun doing it. You might want to know when to use the blur filter and when to work with the blur tool. Of course, this is dependent on your image, but in general you will use the filter for large areas and the tool for small ones, so that you have more control. The radial blur filter can be interesting if you carefully choose how to apply it. It gives you 2 choices, spin and zoom. Spin mode gives you a blur that looks as if the image is spinning around its center point. Zoom mode theoretically gives you the effect of zooming the camera into or away from the image. In the radial blur dialog box, you can set both an amount for blur effect from 1 to 100 and a quality level, draft, good, or best. You can see a spin and zoom structure window that shows the effect by changing the settings you are going to apply. Spin and zoom and check your creation. Switch between both zoom and spin. It applies to the same dialog box. I've applied spin and zoom blurring to the picture of tomatoes. The original image is shown at the top left. After experimenting with the settings, I used 75 as the zoom setting, 61 and 10 as the amount to spin. The Smart Blur filter is a great filter when you need to make your subject older. You can take 20 years off a subject's look, or get rid of the texture in an image of vegetables without losing the folds. Select the filter, and the Smart Blur filter dialog box gives you the option to change the radius and threshold to determine how much blur is applied. You can choose between 3 modes. The normal mode shows the effects of the blurring. The edge only shows you the outlines that Smart Blur is working. The edge overlay shows the outlines as white lines on top of the image. You can use edge overlay or edge only to help you determine what threshold to set. You have to convert the mode back to normal before you click OK to apply the effect. Let's fade the filter. The created small blur can fade to another filter. Open Filter, Fade to fade the effect anywhere from 1 to 99%, and use the Fade box to set a blending mode for the fade effect. There are a lot of great modes like Dissolve or Soft Light. Now I'll show you how to fade in color mode, and with an opacity setting of 50%, how the image will change. And then I'll try another mode, Color Dodge. Fade a filter effect or color adjustment. There are 30 different filters under the heading of Artistic and Sketch filters that you can apply directly or in combinations to change your image into an excellent piece. Now I will introduce you to some filters that are great and you should know, but do not forget to check on the other ones too. You might like them even better. Colored pencil. Select a photograph to work on. You might use one from our photo sample folder. Open the colored pencil filter. Most filters, after you select them, open a preview window. Click the plus or minus symbol to see a reduced or enlarged view within the preview window. The colored pencil filter applies to your image a sort of crosshatched effect. Set values for pencil width and stroke pressure and check your changes within the preview window. Move the slider for the paper brightness setting. Click OK when you are done. Save it if you like it. If not, go back and try again or choose another filter. Try poster edges, paint daubs, smudge stick, charcoal, and chrome. Check on what you like. The dry brush scratches rather than strokes on the paper. Fresco is a very rough painting style done on wet asphalt. It adds black to the image. The neon glow filter transfers the image in one color negative. Use glow in the dialog box. The paint daub filter adds a crosshatch texture to the image. The smudge stick filter makes the lines heavier and the edges blurry. The accented edges filter enhances the contrast of edges. The dialog box enables you to choose edge width, edge brightness, and smoothness. I will show you some of the distort filters, and you can try all the others. The chrome filter removes the color from the image as part of its process. The diffuse glow filter is great. It adds a gentle haze of your background color over the lighter areas of the picture. Check the stylized filters like the Find Edges filter, the Glowing Edges filter, and the Wind filter. The Wind filter works best when applied to a selected area rather than the entire picture.